Hi, this is Bert Kammerer with Align Taiwan, and I'm going to go ahead and show you step-by-step instructions on how to set up the brand new Align 3G flybirless system. First thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have your model already set up on your transmitter. If you were flying a flybar model before, make sure you're still set up at swash mode, 3 servos, 120 ccpm. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and power on the transmitter. Make sure we're in the right model. So with the transmitter turned on, what you do is you hold the set button on your flybirless control unit, and while you're holding the set button, you power on the unit, and you keep holding the set button while the unit powers up. And you will see how it goes through a setup sequence, and it'll enter DIR mode, which is the first LED. So on DIR mode, you need to make sure that your stick is first at center. So you take your transmitter and you go to your pitch curve, and you basically make sure that it's set exactly at center stick. So we should be reading 50 in and 50 out. There we go. Stick exactly at center right here. Then we go to the sub-trim screen, and if we need to, we apply sub-trim to the aileron, elevator, and pitch servos as necessary. The goal here is to make sure that we have a perfectly level swash plate. I personally do not recommend using sub-trim. I want to make sure that you guys out there are centering your servos correctly. So what you do is you take your servo wheels and you play with different positions on the servo wheels until you get a perfect 90-degree angle on your servo wheel. When you look at the servo wheel should be perfectly 90 degrees. But again, if you need sub-trim, you take your transmitter and you add sub-trim to level the servos. Also, make sure that your aileron and your elevator, as well as your pitch servos here on your travel adjust, are all equal, because that's very critical. All the servos need to travel the same amount. Again, the goal here is to make sure that our helicopter right here is set up with the perfect geometry, where the elevator servo, the pitch servo, and the aileron servos are at a perfect 90-degree angle right here, and the bell cranks at a perfect 90-degree angles right here, including the elevator bell crank. And as you move up to the swash plate should be perfectly level. It shouldn't have any tilt in any direction. So at this point, you take your radio and you move your sticks, and you verify that the stick movement is correct, positive, negative pitch, right and left. Your swash should be moving in the right directions, forward and back. Make sure that when you apply back, obviously it moves back, forward, moves forward, right, moves right, left, moves left, up and down collective. Okay, to go ahead and adjust your pitch range, the easiest way to do it is to place the blades in line with the helicopter, the way you're looking at it right now. And the goal here is to make sure that when you're at center stick, your pitch is exactly at 0. So again, if you go to your pitch curve on the radio and you make sure that where it says in out at the bottom on a DX7, it shows 50-50. You know for a fact at that point that you're exactly at half stick, and your blade angle should be exactly at 0 degrees. At this point, what you do with your radio is you go to your swash menu, which is called the swash mix, and you start adjusting your values on your swash mix. And you do this for your aileron, elevator, and pitch. Basically, the way you measure your pitch is you place the fly bar adapter at the top of the head, and you apply positive and negative pitch to your blades. And the maximum amount of collective you want to add here is 14 degrees. So you basically make sure that when your stick is at center, you're at 0 pitch, and you want to have up to 14 positive and up to 14 negative. Now what you do is you go back to half stick, you make sure your pitch curve reads 50 in and out, make sure you're at half stick, and then the way you measure your aileron pitch is you apply right and left aileron as your, or I guess you could say while your collective stick is still at center. You apply right aileron, left aileron, and you take your readings for cyclic for aileron, and they should not exceed 12 degrees. 12 degrees is actually a pretty good number. And you know your aileron number. Here I came up with 65 for aileron. So there's really no need to make a reading on your aileron. Simply match your elevator number to your aileron number. So, and that's exactly what I did. So now I have 65 and 65. So once you're done with that, again, you need to make sure that you are at half stick before we continue with the setup. So make sure that your radio is right at half stick on the left side, and that your pitch curve is still showing 50 in and 50 out. So the next step is to go ahead, once again, make sure you're at half stick on your collective side. You should be reading 50 in and 50 out on your pitch curve, and it is extremely critical that you're at half stick from this point on. So again, half stick. Next thing you do is you push the set button one more time, and that enters the elim mode, which means elevator limit. And at this point, you're basically telling the system how much elevator range it has. So you move your elevator stick all the way forward, you hold it there for a couple seconds, and you let it go. And you'll see the LED blinking while you're doing that. Once you let it go, you're basically teaching the system how much elevator travel it has. And so once we're done with that, the next step is to go ahead and push the set button one more time. And that takes us to the elevator reversing mode. So in the elevator reversing mode, what we're going to do is we're going to check the travel on the swash plate. And what you do is you move the helicopter, or tilt it backwards, and the swash plate should tilt forward. If you tilt the helicopter forward, the swash plate should tilt backwards. So every time the helicopter senses, the gyro senses movement, if it's back, the swash plate should go forward. If it's forward, the swash plate should go back. So forward, and then it corrects itself back again, and then back, it corrects itself forward again. So if that is correct, then there is nothing that you need to do at this point. If the swash plate is not traveling the way it should, then what you do is you go back to your transmitter, and you go ahead and you move your elevator stick up or down. And as you move your elevator stick up or down, you will see how the LED will change from red to green. Right now is in red and is moving in the right direction. If I move the elevator down, LED changes to green. Move it up, changes to red. Again, the swash plate is correcting the right way. So we're going to go ahead and continue to the next menu, which would be the aileron limits. And again, as we did with the elevator before, we're going to do the same thing here. Again, we haven't touched our collective stick so far. We're still a half stick. Now we're going to go ahead and move the aileron all the way to the right. Hold it there for a couple of seconds. You will see the LED blinking, and then let it go. And that is teaching the system how much elevator range it has. Aileron range it has to work with. Then we go ahead and push the button, set button one more time. And that now takes us to the aileron direction of travel. Same that we did with the elevator, we're going to do now with the aileron. Okay, at this point you take the helicopter and you tilt it to the right, and then you tilt it to the left. And every time you tilt it to the right, the swash plate should be moving left. When you tilt it to the left, the swash plate should be tilting right. So again, tilting left, swash plate goes right and stops, or I guess goes back to neutral. Tilting right, swash plate goes to left and then goes back to neutral. So we have correct movement here. If we didn't, we would have to do what we just did earlier. We would have to move the aileron stick left and right until the LED color changes on the unit itself. Right now the LED is showing the green. Correction, is showing red. If that travel was incorrect, if it was correcting in the wrong direction, we would move the aileron stick left and right until the LED up top changes from red to green. But we're okay, so we're going to leave it there. So at this point, basically we just press the set button one more time. So, to make sure that everything's functional, again, when you turn on your receiver, your fiberless system initializes. Your swash plate goes up and down 3 times in a steady motion. That tells us that the system has initialized correctly. Also, it's very important to note here that when you move your swash, for example, back or forward, and you let it go violently, the swash plate returns to center slowly and smoothly. That is a normal function of the fiberless system. So if I move it left and let it go violently, it returns to center very softly. Same with back, forward, right, and left. The system is ready to go. You basically take your transmitter and you make any fine-tune adjustments for your in-flight preferences. So for example, you add exponential for aileron and elevator, possibly for rudder as well. On my radio I'm running 15% expo for my aileron, and I'm running 15% for elevator. And you can also make your adjustments to your swash values. It is important to know, though, that in order to change the range on your gyro system, on your fiberless system, you do have to go back to DIR mode. So that concludes the step-by-step instructions on how to set up your new Align 3G fiberless system. Hope you enjoyed it.